Hello friends, in this video we are going to implement page header for our homepage. In the previous video we had implemented login functionality wherein we had allowed registered users to log in to Friends Forever and the authenticated users were landed on homepage. In this video we would basically create our page header. Now this page header would be common to all the views the user can navigate after login to the application. We will also implement logout functionality for the application since we have completed our login functionality. Now if I go to the UI, our homepage currently look like this, and it's a simple view having a header that is homepage. Now at the end of this video, we would like to have homepage look like this with a page header at the top. Now the page header would have three sections. The first section on the left hand side would have a Friends Forever logo and Friends Forever text. In the middle section would have a text box to search people, and on the right hand side we have two links, that is home and logout. So at the end of this video, we want to achieve this page header. Now this page header is going to be common for all the views. The user can navigate once the user logged into the application. So we want this header to be at a common location. We cannot implement this header for all views. So we want this header to be at a common location. And that common location is basically layout.cshtml. So this is my Friends Forever solution, and if I go to my layout.cshtml, you would see like we have a body, and under body we have a div, and then this render body HTML helper basically renders the views in this div. So what we can do is we can have our page header here just above this div. So what happens, whichever view renders and that view refers this layout page, then for that view the page header would render. So this is the location where we are going to create our page header. Now the second argument is whether we should include the HTML for our page header in the layout.cshtml or create a separate partial view and refer that partial view here. So the advantage of creating a separate partial view and referring it here is basically the layout.cshtml would be pretty much simple. It won't be messy with HTML of page header. Plus the HTML of page header would be in a separate file. Okay, so that basically creates a separation of concern. So the layout would have HTML for layout, page header would have HTML for page header. So what we can do is let's start creating a page header. So I'm going to add a view to this shared folder because all the partial views or shared views are placed under shared folder. And I'm going to name this page header as underscore page header, and it would not have any model, plus I'm not going to refer any layout page in this view. I'm going to get rid of all this HTML and for now just include a hello world header, and then I'm going to refer this partial view on our layout.cshtml. So for that I just have to use render partial helper and specify the name of the partial view, that is underscore page header. Okay, now if I go to my UI and refresh the page, I would see hello world. Okay, so it is showing an error and it is expecting a semicolon after this helper. Now if I refresh the page, you would see hello world just above the home page. So basically the header is getting rendered for this view because this view is referring our layout.cshtml. Now we'll start with the actual development of our page header. So for the page header, I'm going to have a div, and as we have discussed, like there would be three sections. So for each section, I'll be having a TD so that I have to render a table. So what I'm going to do inside this div, I'm going to have a table. This table would have a single tr and then it would have three TDs for each section. Now just in order to render the div, I'm just going to include hello so that div takes the height and width of that hello, and then I'm going to set style, that is background color for our div, and that is a gray like color. So I've already checked that, and if I go to the UI, refresh the page, you would see a small header of the height of hello text, which is stretching along the browser. Now you would notice like there is a margin from left hand side, right hand side, and from the top. But I don't want this margin. I want it to be stretched towards the end of the browser and at the top of the browser. So for that, I have to specify a negative margin of -8 pixels. And after that, it would basically stretch towards the width of the browser and towards the top of the browser. Now I'll get rid of this hello text, and the if I refresh the page, you would see a single border like div. That's because there's no content inside this div. So we'll start with assigning the width for the table. So the table would have width of 100%. So whatever the width of the div is, parent div is, this table would take the width of that div. And I'm going to segregate or distribute this 100% width between these TDs. So for the first TD, I'm going to set width of 25%. Okay, the middle TD would have width of 50%, and the third TD automatically will take rest of the 25%. Now we'll start with the first TD, and in the first TD we are going to have a Friends Forever logo. So I already have that image included, that is this Friends Forever icon. So I'll drag and drop this icon under this TD, and then I'll set its alt attribute to Friends Forever icon. Now if I go to the UI and refresh the page, you would see logo at the left hand side. Now if I go to my PPT, you would see that the logo is on the right side of the TD. So let me pull up my developer tool, and if I hover over this image and hover over the TD, you would see that the blue highlight over the TD, and I want that image to be on the right hand side of the TD. Right now the image is at the left hand side of the TD. So for that, what I can do is I can basically set its text align attribute to right. By this way, the image would move towards the right hand side of TD. Now if I hover over the TD, you can notice like the image is at the right most corner of the TD. Now I want this image to be of smaller size, so I already have that attribute, so I'll just have to set them. So I want the image width to be 40 pixels, its height to be 30 pixels. Okay, now if I refresh the page, you would see a smaller image. Now I want this image to be on the lower end of the header. Right now it is at the top, so I'm going to set margin top for this image to 9 pixels. So by this way the image would come a bit lower. And the next part is, this is about the image, so we are done with the image. The next part is the Friends Forever text. Now this Friends Forever text would be a link, and on click of this logo or link, the home page would render again. So it's basically like a refresh page. So for that, I'm going to have action link, which would create a anchor tag for us, and we want that link text to be friends forever, and I'm going to redirect the user to home page. Okay, the third parameter is route values, so there are no route values for this action result method, and the last is basically setting the style. For now I'm not going to set any style. We'll just basically review the text on the UI, then we'll decide what we have to do. So currently this text is basically at the lower end of this image, and I want this text to be at the center of the image. I want this text to be white in color, and I want to be in particular font, and plus I don't want it to be underlined. So for that, the first thing is the color. I want its color to be white, and the next thing is basically particular font. So I want its font family to be Andalus, so that is pre-decided, so you can basically set as per you. Okay, now I don't want it to be underlined, so for that what I can do, I can go to my site.css, and for all the links, for all the anchor tags, I don't want it to be underlined. So for that I can have a comment here, that is generic element styles, and I'm going to give element selector, that is anchor, and I'll set its text decoration to none. So by setting this, the link would go away, the underline would go away. Okay, now I want this friends forever to be center of this image, so what I can do, I can select this anchor tag and try to manipulate it in the developer tool, and I will set its vertical align to 1 pixel and try to manipulate it, and if I go on increasing it, you would see the text would be at the center. So 4 pixel would look 4 pixel looks good to me, so I'll just go to my page header and set its vertical align to 4 pixels. Okay, so we are done with our first section, that is the logo and friends forever text. Now I also want my this friends forever text to be bit more in size, so for that I can set its font size to be 18 pixels. So this would make my text looks bigger, and if I compare with the PPT, it looks pretty much similar. So we are done with our first section. Now comes the second section, that is rendering the center text box. So the second TD or the middle TD comprises of the center width of 50%. So if I hover over this TD, you would see the highlighted section at the middle, and this comprises of the 50% of the entire width. So inside this, I'm going to have another div, and then I'm going to have input text, input type text, which would render a text box. I'm going to have a placeholder which would say search people. Okay, now if I refresh the page, you would see text box, but if I compare it to the PPT, the text box should be at the middle. It would have more width, more height, so we have to basically style this text box as per the PPT. So I'll go to my page header again. I will set its style to be having width of 400 pixels, height of around 24 pixels, and if I refresh the page, you would see the desired width and height of our text box. Now I want this text box to be center, so what I can do, I can set the text align of this TD to be center. So by this way, our text box would move towards the center of the TD. So if I hover over the TD, you would see the text box is exactly at the center of this TD. Now you will notice like our logo is towards the end, towards the downside of the header, but our text box is right at the center. But I want this text box to be bit lower, so what I can do, I can set some margin top here of 5 pixels. If I refresh it again, you would see the text box is now aligning with our logo. So this was about the center part. Now comes the third part where we are going to render two links. So for the first link, I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to render action link, and this action link would be a home page link. I'm going to redirect the user to home page. There will be no route values, and the fourth parameter would be for our style attributes. For now, I'm not setting anything. We'll set it once we review. Okay, the same div I'm going to repeat for my second link, and the second link is logout. The action method we have not created yet, but I'm assuming like we are going to create action method of name tech logout. The controller is different, so I'm going to specify security controller here. So if I don't specify, it would assume the same controller which has rendered this partial view. And as the home page is rendered by home page controller, it would automatically assume this action method to be present in home page controller, but the logout action result method would present in security controller. So I have to specify that security controller here, otherwise it would try to search logout action result method in home page controller. Okay, now if I go to the UI, you would see the links, like the links are vertically aligned instead of horizontally aligned, plus they are blue in color instead of white in color. So I'm going to set some style attributes like color, and I want them to be horizontally aligned. For that I can set float left, and that's all. So I'll just copy this to second link as well. If I go to the UI, you would see they are horizontally aligned. Now I want my logout to be have some margin from the home link. So for that, what I can do, on my logout link, I can have a margin left of 20 pixels. So this would basically move logout far from home link. Now you would notice like the home and logout link are exactly at the center, not aligned with the Friends Forever logo and text box. So for that, what I can do, I can set margin top to 4 pixels, 5 pixels. Similarly, I'll set this style on our above link as well, home link as well. Now if I refresh it, you would see now they look bit aligned and look exactly similar what we have in our PPT. Okay, now our all the three sections are done. Now if I go to my header, you would notice like these two links have exactly same style attribute set. So what you can do, you can basically create a class inside .css and include these properties and just include that class for both these links. So why that way these style attributes are maintained in a single class, and you can basically reuse that class anywhere else. For now I am just including them inline to the control. Now next part is basically on click of this logout, I want the user to be logged out of the application and redirected to the logon page. So for that, I have to go to my security controller, because login and logout stuff are handled by security controller. I'm going to create a new action result method. Okay, and I'm going to name it as logout. Inside this action result method, I'm going to logged out of forms authentication by using sign out method, and then I'm going to return user to logon page using redirect to action method, and I'm going to specify the name of our logon page, that is logon. Okay, I'm going to build my application and I'm going to click on this logout, and you will notice like we would be redirected to our logon page. Okay, so you are redirected to the logon page, but notice like the page header is present on this page as well, but I don't want page header to be on any view where the user is not authenticated. I want this page header to be on the views once the user is authenticated. Okay, so this should not be present on logon form. It should be only present on home page. So how to do that? So for that, I have to have some condition here which would basically check if the user is authenticated or not. Only if the user is authenticated, render this page header. So for that, I have to create some variable in the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a key in a session, that is username, and I'm going to set it to whatever the username user has provided on the logon form. And you would notice like this key would be added only when the user is authenticated and authorized by this is valid user function. And then we are going to redirect user to the home page. So now what I can do is I can use this key as a condition in our layout form, and here I can have if condition, and that if condition would say like if session, the key name is username not equal to null. Okay, if this username is not equal to null, then only render the page header partial view. So that means only if the user is authenticated and authorized, then only this partial view would render. So if I refresh my page here, the header would go. Okay, and another thing I want to do is basically in the security controller, when we are logging out of the application, we are basically signing out from forms authentication. I want to clear all the session data so that we also clear that session data of username, session key of username. And that's it. I'm going to build my application. I'm going to log on to the application again. So once I'm on the home page, you would see that page header. Okay, and once I log out of the application by clicking on this link, I'll be logged out of the application to log on page, and there is no page header on this page. So this is how you can create a page header for our home page, and we've created in a separate view so that all this HTML is not present on our layout.cs HTML to make it messy. So we have a separate partial view referred on our layout page, and we only render this page header when the user is authenticated. And then finally we basically logged out of the application, we clear all the session variables, we basically sign out from forms authentication as well. So this is how we have created our page header, and I hope you like this video. And in the next video we would basically try to implement functionality where you can search different users registered to friends forever using that text box we have rendered in our page header. This is all about this video. Thank you, friends.